Hello everybody and welcome to the Rainbow Factory, which is apparently My Little Pony fanfiction, and it's where like all the ponies, no, I don't know how to explain it, but Rainbow Dash goes insane. So, and they make, basically, I'm not gonna spoil it, but they make rainbows out of something, and it's really bad. But I'm probably gonna end this at a cliffhanger, so please don't be mad at me. Alright, here we go. There's been long rumors as to how exactly rainbows are made in Equestria. While a great amount of Pegasi ponies are employed in the rainbow department of the Weather Factory, almost all of them do the low-end work. What's known as the great systems of What's known as is What's now is the great streams of spectra, the individual colors of the rainbow, flow through the large grates into vast vats. From there, workers carefully and equally mix spectra into the color-gated rainbow pools and dot and run through the factory and surrounding city. Next, that mixture is pumped into the floor below, where the other employees entomize it and store it until the active weather Pegasi deploy it in field. However, no one knows how individual spectra is made. Supplies are never seen being brought in, leaving not a clue of what goes on into a rainbow. Tourists, when visiting the factory, are treated to an extremely foreboding and plain wall with massive solid colors bearing entry to any pony at any time. While most of the facility's various signs and architecture is bubbly and welcoming, the Rainbow Factory's upper floor was protected by harsh imagery of potential hazards and death. And the cloud was made not out of the clean white with the rest of the city, but out of a black, thundering fog. To become an employee of the Upper Rainbow Factory means sacrificing any life outside the black walls. Workers are sworn to secrecy and forbidden from leaving and live inside the faculty itself. Those few who ever manage to make it out not in a body bag were twisted and disturbed, too damaged to ever bring up themselves to talk about it. A lot of theories were proposed. Dark magic from captured unicorns, chemicals from environmental hazards that no sane pony would tolerate, and even though of another unknown sister of Celestia's destined to create the spectra instead of raise a sun or moon. None of them could be farther than the truth. And then it has, but a rainbow's easy once you get to know it with the help of the magic of the Pegasus device. Come on, Orin, we're gonna be late for a final test, Scootaloo called from a friend of hers. She was older now, in her last year of flight school. Like all the other Pegasus in the school, she was terribly nervous of the final test. Those that passed were granted freedom into the world to find their cutie marks if they haven't yet and become working ponies. Little is known, or little thought about in fact, of what was happened when the fillies that had failed their test. While uncommon, one or two from every class generally didn't have it in them to perform the rigorous acts and maneuvers. Those that failed their tests were looked down upon in the worst ways, shunned and hated. Cloudsdale has always bred a form of nationalism amongst its occupants. If you weren't the best, or didn't show the potential of being the greatest, you weren't allowed to be a part of the glorious collective. Scootaloo moved a little aside as Orin, a tall yet fairly skinny pony, settled next to her. He fluffled his light brown feathers and gave them a worried alright, let me restart that. He fluffled his light brown feathers and gave a worried attempt at a smile as she stared down where he sat. They were sitting in the large opening waiting room overlooking the Colosseum with all the other graduating Pegasi. Just visible in the distance was the factory. Orin glanced at it and gulped. "What's the matter, Orin? You afraid of getting a dead-end job in the snow line?" Orin chuckled a bit. Then his eyes and sighed. "No, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I can do this. What if I fail? What if I don't fail? But do bad enough just to be disliked by everyone. I don't know if I can take being deported. Where do we go now, anyways? Scootaloo gave Oren a friendly punch. No one knows, you dolt. And we're not gonna fail. Everyone here is gonna be fine. I know I will at least pass, she laughed. Thanks for the tips of Rainbow Dash, I'm sure to be fine. Oh yeah, sure, that reassures me. That's actually just as if not more reassuring, than the psychopathic hate every pony seems to love to spread. Quit panicking, Scary Wings, Scootaloo replied. The only one here I think even might fail is that yellow pony with the dark green mane. She's the one who was out sick for that month, you know. Oh yeah, Oren remembered as he craned his head in the other pony's direction. The one who had that bad case of hoof and wing. She looks pretty confident, though. I suppose we'll see, Scootaloo trailed, turning to look at the factory herself. It gave her chills, not a fear, but pride. I hope I get some cool active weather job. Can you imagine everyone in Ponyville or Philadelphia staring up at me, going, "There goes Scootaloo, such an amazing flyer. And from Cloudsdale, there's no doubt." She smiled in excitement, forgetting her tension for the moment. That would be amazing, I admit, mind you. Just coming from Cloudsdale, who wouldn't be in awe? Exactly. Praise the flock. Praise the flock. Places, places, every pony. A massive buff Pegasus walked towards the entrance to the Coliseum. We're going to do this by name. Your educators are on the east side of the field. Do not, I repeat, do not fly too far west. If they lose sight of you for any reason, you'll be failed. Take deep breaths, stretch your wings one last time. The test will consist of 3 sections: weather clearing, agility, and finally recovery. Clear the clouds, fly through the hoops, and then to the marked evaluation. Close your wings for at least 3 seconds. Any less and you'll fail. But keep in mind there's no extra points for extra seconds. Finally, recover before you hit the cloud floor. Understood? Any questions? The instructor paused and carefully glanced at every single pony in the room. Everyone's eyes were completely focused on him, and none ceased with confusion. All right, Aurora Dawn, you're up first. Clear, fly, fall, complete. The yellow pony nodded and walked quickly up to the starting ramp with purpose. She stared at the watching judges, waited for a nod from all 3, and then took off with a powerful force. The ramp bounced slightly from the force of the takeoff. Every pony watched as Aurora quickly reached the starting altitude, and then began a direct and purposeful attack on the position's clouds. With expert timing and intelligent angles, the sky was soon empty of any moisture. Scootaloo and Oren watched with open mouths as they watched the first testee pull fast and right turns, expertly shooting dead center through every hoop. Finally, Aurora pulled herself to the proper altitude, hovered, and closed her wings. The group of students gasped as they watched her plummeting down towards the crowd, and she counted breathlessly. 1, 2, 3. They sighed as they watched her wings open in the correct amount of time, collectively holding herself in that relief. Suddenly, Aurora's wings whipped upwards, and the group of students flinched in horror as they heard the loud, hollow snap, only to be suddenly replaced by an unending, piercing scream. Many, like Oren, shielded their eyes with their wings, as others like Scootaloo could only watch, terrified, with the blur of yellow, green, and red plummeted into a cloud with a dull thump. Wasting no time, the instructor walked forward again as the 3 judges simply pointed down and started shuffling papers around. Speaking loudly as if nothing happened, he called out again. Daisy Fields, clear, fly, fall, complete. Scootaloo and Oren stared slack-jawed as another pony gulped and then walked forwards on the path and took off. They turned back to the on the cloud where Aurora had landed and stared. As the wind blew the fragments that were thrown up by the collision away, they saw the shivering yellow body attempt to move, only to collapse with a cry. Faraday spots. Clear, fly, full, complete. Aurora still struggled to walk, wailing with every step. Her legs weren't broken. She could use them fine, but she was in obvious pain from her wing joints, and the loss of her potential life was crushing on her. Scootaloo felt Orange shuffle uneasy, tears welling in his eyes as a frown formed on his face. Holiday shine, clear, fly, full, complete. Okay. No one's going to help her, Oran said through closed teeth. Scootaloo felt extremely sad for the yellow Pegasus, but couldn't see herself helping her. She would be failed herself and sent away, far away from Cloudsdale with any familiar place to Equestria, to a place where she and any other failed students could never strain Cloudsdale reputation. It was a terrible shame, but Scootaloo herself couldn't fail. She couldn't fail her friends. She couldn't definitely fail Rainbow Dash. Not after the care and help that she had given her in Scootaloo's whole life. Scootaloo blinked the tears from her eyes and forced herself to watch the competing students. One after another took off, successfully passed the test, and flew to the east gate, under the judge's spot in the stands. That's all Scootaloo focused on. Pass the test. Fly to the gate. Live a happy life. Oran Solstice. Clear, fly, full, complete. No. What? The instructor took a step back, one leg raised in the air. You can't just refuse your flight test. Get out there before you piss off the judges. No. Don't even pretend you care about my future if you don't care about hers. Oran defied, unsure about himself. You say you want me to get a good life, and yet you don't care. Yet you let those that fail suffer unbearable pain. Get the fuck onto that field before I fail you myself, the instructor shouted menacingly. Fine, Oran spoke sharply before walking on the ramp. He stared at the judges, waited for the individual nods, and the second he came and took off. However, long before the starting attitude, he turned sharply and landed gently next to Aurora. She turned and looked at him, blood running down her forehead and sides, and tears streamed down her face. What are you doing? You'll fail like me. I'd rather be failed from a place that treats ponies like this than live my life while others don't not live theirs. Aurora smiled, happiness briefly replacing her sadness in her blackened, puffy eyes, until she stumbled again and intense pain flashed her body. Oran leaned in close, using his wing to brace the yellow pony against himself. He stared at the judges, beaming hate with his vision. They stared down, unaffected, and simply pointed down, before looking back towards the ramp for the next contestant. Scootaloo stood shocked, hardly hearing her name called. She moved numbly up the ramp, never taking her eyes off her friend and the pony he sacrificed to help. After a brief moment, she shook her head, recovered her thoughts, and looked at the judges. Thoughts passed through her head as she watched them all nod. Oh, Celestia, what do I do? I can't let everyone down, but I'll never see Oran again, I suppose. I hope he knew that risk when he did that. Sure he's thinking the same right now. She glanced at Oran. He wasn't looking at her. She took off, heartbroken. Instinct kicked in as the familiar rush of wind cooled her and blew her thoughts away. She stopped at the right altitude and then launched again, sensing and seeing every cloud, forming a game plan. In a matter of couple dozen seconds, the sky was clear. She did a quick loop in mid-flight, aiming at the first two. Sorry. With a powerful flash of her wings, she propelled forward through the first ring, and then the second, and then the third, expertly turning and drifting. She curved in towards the second last ring, near the bottom of the field. She descended. She caught sight of Orin and Aurora, almost at the west gate now. Orin turned his head and smiled weakly. Scootaloo's focus shattered. Orin knew what he did. He cared about her, he'd miss her, and he'd never get to say goodbye. Scootaloo cranked at the bottom of the ring, falling backwards several feet and hitting the ground. With a sudden intense flash of fear, she flipped herself onto her feet and began flapping her wings, levitating off the ground. Maybe that didn't count as a failure, she thought. I can still fly. There's a scratching on the field. She spun around to the judges. Scootaloo started crying now, tears welling up in a blurring of vision. Was it right? It shouldn't have happened. None of it. Orin should have passed that test and cheered her on from the east gate. She shouldn't have never looked at him. She would have focused on flying. There was no room for excuses. Defeated, she slowly hovered with Orin and settled down next to him. She looked at him through her purple eyes. He looked back after the smile.
Come true in the rainbow factory, where not a single soul gets through. In the rainbow factory, where your fears and hearts come true. In the rainbow